Afternoon, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome back to Chewing It Over. Great show planned today. Hopefully it works because you know what it's like when guests are coming and stuff, is that you set the scene, but the tech might not work. And so I hope we can do what we've got planned, which is to talk to Farouk Bello, who's one of our Physio Matters First Steps gang. And they run a student and new graduate program for Physio Matters, which basically offers some translation to materials, as well as engaging with the student and new graduate community in MSK practice and beyond to try and get them more involved. And he's been doing some great work, including to host an event this evening. So Farouk's not in the waiting room yet, and so hopefully he's going to be able to come and join me shortly. But regardless of that, let me tell you a little bit about tonight's online event that you should come along and join. Let me try and pull these up on screen, which is Diversity and Inclusion in Physiotherapy, Past, Present and Future. And this is the gang that Farouk's going to be, he's brought together a brilliant panel. He's just turned up in the waiting room. Farouk, I'll be with you in a second, mate. Hopefully we can bring you on shortly. But yeah, this is a proper who's who of top thinkers that are going to be chewing over this topic on this evening. Now, I've realised, sorry, my mistake. This is actually an old flyer. It's at 8 p.m. tonight, so I noticed that that's wrong. So apologies for that. But certainly 8 o'clock tonight, if you tune in on Facebook, on Physio Matters Facebook, you're going to be getting that. And just keep an eye out on social media for all the bios of all the speakers that have been being tweeted out and things like that on the Physio Matters account. 3 more of them today. But this is an event that Farouk's running today. But whilst I've got him on, I want to talk a little bit about the event and bringing that together and why it's important. But also, I want to talk to him because I've got a chance to and pick his brain. He's a great thinker, runs his own podcast himself. I want to talk to him a little bit about how it's been, if he's able to share with us about how it's been getting into practice from being a student recently and stuff, transitioning to being a new graduate, and some little bits and tasters about what first steps are up to whilst I've got him. So that we'll go on to that, but we'll be talking about the event first and foremost. Let me try and get that off screen. There we go. So yeah, let me introduce him and make sure the tech's working. It sounds like he's there, he's comfortable, he's snacking and using the facilities in the waiting room. So I'll just leave him there for a second longer and tell you a little bit about Farouk. Someone that is involved in the Physio Matters First Steps group, as I said, but also at Therapy. Some of you might have seen him at Therapy Live. He was actually the First Steps group, ran the Physio Matters stand at Therapy Live, and they did a brilliant job, especially when we had some tech issues at the start. They were having to firefight some of the issues that have been going on. But also, he did a live session at Therapy Live on the stand, talking a little bit about diversity and inclusivity and his experiences in physiotherapy. And that was really, went down really well, and it was really thoughtful piece that he did. A little short insight into his thinking on this, but also as part of what we did with Melrose Stewart on Physio Matters, talking about some of the race relations issues that had occurred, particularly off the back of George Floyd's death. It felt appropriate for us to then go to Farouk and say, like, what would you potentially do to try and bring those issues to the fore and have a discussion about them? And so he was brilliant in bringing together some great names to come together tonight. So 8 o'clock, Facebook. I'm sure we'll say that a few times over the course of this show. But he's just someone that, from this topic and beyond, is just a great mind, and so great to have him on the show. So without further ado, let me bring him on and let's see if it works. I'm always nervous when we try and cast this out. But Farouk, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Happy days, lovely. So you might have heard my waffly intro there, mate. But and also making the mistake of putting the wrong date on the flyer. So apologies for that.
No worries.
But tell us a little bit about bringing this panel together for tonight.
So bringing this panel together was, as you probably know, it took a lot of effort and everything. But I think one of the important things about this panel is what they bring to the table in regards to this discussion and this topic we're experiencing. So I intentionally picked these people because of I think someone like Andrew and Leanne have a certain years of experience in physiotherapies, and they've been practicing for, I think, Andrew's over 30 years now. So they can really give with the theme, which is the past, the present, and the future. They can really tell us about what's happening, what happened back then, and how it significantly has changed between I don't know, 20 years ago and how significantly it's changed now, because I can only really give my experience of now because I'm just newly qualified as well. And then we have a good mix of different characters and different people on the panel. And I think that's really, really drive home the idea of what we're trying to gain from this live conversation.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting really is that you look at that. I mean, it's almost cross generational when you look
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
panel and stuff, as well as the fact that those experiences are going to be varied and interesting. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear all of their thoughts. Just out of interest, then, what do you feel have been because logistical challenges sometimes people make the mistake of understanding, even on a virtual event like this. It's tough to get diaries to meet, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you know this more. You probably know this more than me. You've been doing this more than me, but it's a good experience, to be fair, for future things. But trying to navigate how to get everyone's on the same page with the same time and trying to negotiate that there's back and forth and there's give and takes, and then to finally narrow it down, you just have to take, in a sense, you have to take what you can get. And I can imagine it would be a whole different ballgame if it was physical, like a live physical conference, because virtual you kind of have more wiggle room, you can afford 8 o'clock time like today's on. If it's live, you can't really go 8 p.m. Live person conversations. So
absolutely, no, fair play. Well, you've done a good job, mate, and you've got a real A-list there of top thinkers on this. So it's going to be really interesting. Do post your questions or wherever you might be listening to this into the chat if you have about tonight. If you tell us if you're going to be tuning in, tell us if not, why not. You will be able to access it live at 8 o'clock, but also then after the fact, it will be available wherever we cast it, which we'll try and get that uploaded to YouTube, for example. We'll put that out as audio as well, as best and far as wide as we can. But yeah, Farouk, what I would want to ask is, could you give us a little taster as to what people have got to come for tuning in this evening? What sort of things do you feel we're going to be chatting through?
Yeah, so a few things hoping to talk through with the panel is, if you take this for example now, the path of physiotherapy, as you said, it's a bit of cross-generational. So I have myself, which is the new generation in a sense, young, and you have the old generation. You have kind of a middle ground. And what we're hoping to achieve is understand a bit about this race relationship between physiotherapies, between discrimination and the BAME groups, in a sense that, we all know that there are challenges faced. A lot of people who are, if you talk to most Black physios or anybody of color, they'll tell you that they face different challenges. And so one thing I want to actually ask is, what are these challenges they faced? Why have they faced these challenges? And how do we provide a solution for the new coming groups of people coming in? And how do we actually help to fix it now? Because it's no surprise to anyone that there are issues in physiotherapy, as with any profession, in regards to diversity and this and all that. And I think these last few months, it's really come to light, these issues. So what this talk is going to help to achieve is trying to bring some of these to light, and not just talk about them, but also provide valid solutions and realistic solutions. Because I think that's the last key part that a lot of discussions always miss is, what is the solution, or how can we actually start curbing these events? Because they're rampant, and then the question then becomes, how much have we changed things? Like, in a sense that, how much better was it 20 years ago and to today, and how much better is it 20 years? Because me as a Black physio, the one thing I always hear a lot of the times is, change takes time, change takes time, change takes time. But the question then becomes, how much time does it really need to take? Are they going to keep telling me that? Will they tell my children that? Will they tell their children that? Or will it just keep going on, and it kind of drags across because there's no real plan? So this talk we're aiming to have today is to try and see if we can we're going to try and make it as real as possible, with people sharing their experiences, so you can really understand and put a face to a lot of these issues, to say these aren't just statistics, and say when they say, oh, there aren't enough Black physios, or they're facing troubles, these are actual real people who have faced these troubles from 20 years ago and they're still facing it now, or to see, is it a lot better than it was 20 years ago? And what is the future looking like? What's the prospective future? And I think it's really important, because when you consider that physiotherapy, we are naturally a care provider, and the people who benefit from the care are patients. Now, what is the impact to the patients if we have more diversity, if we have more inclusion, if we're able to address more of these issues? Because I think it's fair to say that if you have better clinicians and better people, if someone like myself be more comfortable in every area, you can provide better care to the patients ultimately. And that's one of the end goals that I'm hoping that this type of conversation can stimulate and then show to different people. Because I think to an extent, not a lot of people are aware of some of these issues that are faced, or through willful ignorance or just oblivious or not aware, it's not in their bubble. They don't really know that these things are happening. And then there are people who are not comfortable, like blacks and black physios are not comfortable where they are, or they're not comfortable in a different situation, or they face challenges that some of the white counterparts would not actually face. And that bringing these topics to the forefront would actually maybe be eye-opening to some people, I think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to understanding that there are some issues that transcend disciplines, whereby it's sort of a representation of how we as physiotherapists and involved in healthcare are experiencing some of these things that seem to correlate across different industries. But then there's also some specific things with regards to what Manny, one of your panelists, had mentioned, which was a statistic that I helped me with bringing forward with Melrose Stewart, was that even across national averages that physiotherapy seems to be low with regards to the statistical differences and why that might be. And so I'm looking forward to exploring that, because it's something that marrying that lived experience with statistics can help us to understand a better, thorough analysis, but then also, like you mentioned, then striving towards trying to understand what are appropriate solutions, and also talking about what would be bad solutions that might make things worse. So really interested to see how you explore that together as a panel. It's going to be really interesting. As I said, whilst you're on, and I was checking with you today just to see how much time you had, because obviously if you did need to dart off, then fine. But whilst I've got you, I hope you don't mind me asking as to just your experiences in transitioning from being a student through to being a new graduate, and how's things going, how are you enjoying things?
I think my experience it's been very interesting. And I think one of the most interesting times is that first few weeks when you realize that you're no longer a student and then you are a fully qualified physiotherapist. And I think I tweeted this once, and when you have to introduce yourself as a student, you always say, "Hi, I'm Farouk, I'm the student physio," because you kind of have to let them know. But when you fully qualify, you can't preface yourself like that anymore. You just have to take on that I'm the physio, and I'm going used to it now. It's a bit of a curve, I think, the first few weeks, because in the back of my head sometimes I'm still thinking maybe I need to ask my educator a question, or maybe I need to run through some things. But it's also, I realize you have to trust yourself, man, because I got to this point because I'm competent enough to be able to be left alone. And then it's just that realizing it, because the knowledge will be there. And I think a lot of different people probably face similar things like that when they think, maybe I need to ask my educator thing. But it's also trusting in your abilities. And for me personally, that's one thing I think over the last few weeks, I think I've been working now, I think about 2 months now, and I've kind of gotten the hang of it and gotten the hang of being independent. But it did also help that I did a lot of shadowing experiences and placements that actually benefit, and you can transfer those skills into communication, independent working, and all that type of thing. So it's been very, 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 very eye-opening, but I'm quite enjoying it so far, to be honest. And It's very interesting to say I look forward to work now, because I'm just like, I might learn something new, and then again, I might learn something new on Monday. So I just learned something new again, but it's very weird. It's a weird feeling, but it's good all around.
No, brilliant. That sounds great. I mean, certainly anyone that's tuning in live, please do send your reflections as to whether or not you remember those first few moments of being qualified, of which you then recognizing the change in responsibility, but also needing to introduce yourself differently, and sometimes having to reshape the even the pattern that you're using. So I remember those well. And I think one of the things that's there's two patients that are always forever etched in my memory, which is the first patient I went out to a waiting room to collect in an MSK environment, which was just happened to be my first placement as a student. And then the same thing happened then, of course, being qualified, and weirdly, despite some decent experience in particularly in MSK, but fairly thoroughly across my degree, the actual feelings I had in those two moments was so similar. You know, there's a sense of vulnerability and optimism, but also sort of excitement. It's such a mix of emotions and stuff, of literally just going and facing up to the public of and being responsible in that way. It's something that I think we'll always remember.
Definitely, and I think what's it called? It's that feeling that now you're on your own, and you have to get your job done now. And I mean, you have obviously as band five, you have the support systems and everything, but at the end of the day, you are still qualified, and you can't see people by yourself. And it's just finding out that, okay, yeah, actually, I can do this by myself, and I'm qualified enough. But another thing that I found very interesting is that currently I'm on a community placement, which means I work in people, I go to houses, I go out a lot, and I found myself significantly enjoying it so much. And I'm just like, you know what, could I do it? Now this is where, because as a band five now, I'm not sure where I want to be. I always thought of myself as MSK sports because I am a sporty person myself. But now I'm starting to think, you know what, that's nice, but let me keep my options just a little bit open, just to see what the waters are in different places, because I think that's how you figure it out. You find one placement, and next thing you know, you're in love with it, and you might stay there. You never know.
That's so often the case, isn't it? You go in, sometimes you qualify even thinking, like, you start your degree thinking one thing, you sort of change your tune, but sometimes even regress back to your initial instincts. And then in practice, yeah, exposure to new things. It's often the big debate about rotations, etc., as to how you go about stuff. Always find it interesting to see how people end up. Now, I mean, I can't help but admit, declaring my biases, that I want you in and amongst the MSK gang. If I'm honest, I'll be a bit tribal there, but I also totally respect and agree that you want to be sort of really learning as much as you can across different disciplines at the moment. And how's it? I mean, I can't help but ask the question about the current landscape and COVID, etc., because you've then, one of the things and pressures that I remember feeling when I graduated was that you then end up in a situation where you've got to, even at a higher level, comply within appropriate, regulations, and there's a sense of responsibility that goes beyond when you're a student. But at the moment, the sort of underlying governance and policies and compliance and the very particulars over things like that are obviously far higher for good reason. How's that feeling? Is that sort of anxiety inducing? Is it helpful in some way?
I think overall, I think it's been quite helpful, because I think one of the things comes down to my personality. I'm quite adaptable to multiple situations. So if whatever, I'm kind of one of those people where whatever you throw at me, I'll figure it out one way or the other. But I think the governance, and especially during these times now, because obviously we're going into people's houses to ensure safety of both the patients and yourself as well. So you just have to follow it. There's a whole gowning or donning and doffing procedure. You have to do it every time, which I completely understand, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be spreading it across the different people as well. But one great thing I've found so far is that the transferable skills. I find myself doing MSK, what's it called, MSK assessments now. Sometimes when I see a patient, I'm doing a whole MSK, like, because I had an MSK outpatients placement. I find myself going back like, what did I do there? Bang, and I start doing a whole MSK procedure. But then sometimes I might find myself doing a bit of respiratory or seeing some neuro patients. So it gives that different levels of experience and very big transferable skills. So I think, but overall, I think the governance is, it's helpful and as best as it can be, to be honest.
I could think of a few ways in which it could be. Like, I thought it can't all be negative or anxiety inducing. I can imagine that sometimes the parameters that are set around it kind of can be, as long as you learn them and comply with them, fundamentally it may be, safe by design in a way that can sort of help shape your day, especially in those sorts of placements, rotations in which you've not necessarily got this really tight diary one by one in the same place where the patient's coming to you. And sometimes that structure can help. We've had a really interesting comment here from Jim Fahy. Now, it could well be that it's a coincidental name, but I recognise that name as being someone that's in amongst it, in the thick of it at the CSP in the trade union side. So hi, Jim. I hope it's the same Jim. If it's not, same name. But he says he remembers being so scared on his first day on an orthopaedic ward, picking up a missed fracture, which is a great shout. Sorry, I've lost it there. Let me picking up a missed fracture in the afternoon. His knees were knocking when he raised it. Yeah, well, exactly. That's one of the things, is especially if you're then having to raise concerns over something like that and being worried about how that comes across. That's a tough first day, Jim. So I'm not surprised you remember it. But I think that a lot of people are probably going to pick this up after the fact, after the live, and reflect heavy on those moments, because I think it's only when you really think back you realise just how sharp that memory is, and that's relevant. So, like, if I said to you, tell me about your 10th patient you ever saw, then someone's going to be very strange for people to remember. Whereas the first one, like we just described, I think is important. So, really good luck with it all, and thank you as well for sharing your experience as it happens. I think it's really interesting to see, and it sort of smoothly moves me on to wanting to ask you questions in and around the Physio Matters First Steps. project and group, etc. Because some of the most valuable work I've been seeing come out of it, although it's still embryonic, and I know you've got big plans, but
Yeah.
one of the things you guys are doing to just reflecting and sharing your experiences and helping people to understand that they're not alone has been some of the great feedback you've been having. So tell us a little bit about that project, and also what, this is where you can tell me what's and all as to whether you're enjoying it or not.
Yeah. So the First Step project, I'm very happy I'm involved with it. I think what it stands for and what it's actually doing for a lot of students, because we do get a lot of people sending us messages and saying, oh, they really enjoyed that type of talk. And I think one of the things for us to start, one of the things we wanted to drive from was sharing our experiences, because I think if for a lot of people, it's very beneficial to hear that you're not the only one, as you said, and then someone else is going through this times when you're on let's say, for example, your first placement, and you might feel alone, and you might feel like, oh, this is very tough. I might be the only person struggling. But what we're trying to do with First Step is to say, you're not alone, and we're here to help you as best as we can, because we share our experiences. So that's, as you said, we have big plans coming ahead. So the first stage is to show our experiences in these different levels. I know we did a talk on CPD, we've done one on interviews, and we're just trying to make that experience going from a students, even if you're from your first year, because as you know, our team has a lot of different people. We have people in their early years, we have people who just graduated, we have people still in that transitioning period. So what we want to do is provide that level of support where we can say, struggling with something, we can help you, maybe either via one of our videos or one of our posts on Instagram. But the First Steps team, I think, as we go along, we're going to be more active in the sense that we're going to be reaching out. People reach out to us already. I think we even got someone asking if we do any CPD or we can help in any way, things like that. And those are the type of things that we will help with. We'll direct you and say, you know what, this might be the best people if you want to get some better CPD practice. And whichever way we can do, because I think helping one person at a time goes a very long way, as opposed to trying to do too much at the same time. But even if you can make a difference in one student's lifestyle or help that person get the job that they want to do just by giving you our tips, because I think, as they say, one of the best teachers is experience. And I think we have a good amount of experience in some of these things. Like now, if you ask me, I can probably give advice on getting jobs interviews, because realistically, I failed some of my job interviews, but I passed some as well. So it's learning from those, which is completely normal, I assume.
Cool.
You're not going to pass everything. But yeah, that's one of the things we're trying to drive home with First Steps, to support as best as we can and provide as much content going forward.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think as well, you're really nicely varying the output as well. You've been doing some talks and getting together as a group and sharing your experiences, but then also certain Twitter threads that you've done in around reflections on virtual placements, as well as what to expect.
Exactly.
Sometimes that expectation, sometimes people have built something up in their mind, and actually you're almost providing some sort of myth busts as well as a group. And so I really like the variety of content that you've been creating, and also just excited to see where it goes, because it is something that's sort of young and emergent. I know that me and the team are excited and interested to see where you take it, as well as how we can support you doing it. Now, granted, you guys hardly need us, and I think if anything, we're going to be going to you for tips and tricks, I think, soon enough. But generally speaking, there's lots of options there and available, and I'm really pleased with how things have been going, because I think I admitted to all of you at the time it was something that, here's an opportunity, here's a way to get together. However, there was absolutely no specific expectation on output. It really was that you could do with it what you wish, and that would have been including the fact that we might have been sat here reflecting on it not working for whatever reason. That's fine too. But at the moment, it just seems like it's poised to go from strength to strength. So I'm really interested. So people do check out Physio Matters First Steps across social media, PM First Steps on Twitter, for example, and I think the same on Instagram. But also just keep an eye on not just First Steps as a group, but also these guys as individuals. I've noticed a comment coming here from Joe Turner, who says, welcome to the profession, Farouk. We're better off for having thoughtful physios on board. Really looking forward to this evening. And I know Joe's not alone in that.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Tune in today at 8 o'clock. Before we go then, Farouk, I want to give you the opportunity to sort of talk a little bit about your podcast, as well as then the other work that you're doing with Rook's Health, and tell us a bit about why you have wanted to move into that space as well, not just fledgling clinical career, but also wanting to share your thoughts online.
Yeah, so for me personally, I started Rook's Health. I think I started Rook's Health in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic while we were in lockdown, because I've always been one of those people where I really I'm interested about different things in health. And if you listen to the podcast, which you can hear on everything, Apple Music, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and etc., I talk about a varying level of things in regards to health, because me personally, I'm interested in nutrition. And one of the things I'm most interested about is something called holistic healthcare, which is looking at the different aspects of someone's health and different influencing factors. Because I know as a physiotherapist that obviously we have but then we also work together in MDTs with people like nurses and psychologists and nutritionists. So I just always wanted to hear what these other areas and disciples have to say, and how those can play a role in influencing my practice. And also, at the end of the day, I'm just really into health. And some people say I'm a health guy because the way I eat, the way I do all these things. So I always have all these questions. And I think I started Rook's Health going into trying to debunk myths and see, which things do we commonly miss and what do we normally get wrong. But at the end of the day, it became into something where I'm just having conversations with some really smart people, some doctors, some nutritionists, some psychologists, about a varying level of variety of topics, all about individual health and how to get someone to the best way they can be and where they want to go. So that's why I started Rook's Health. And I think so far, podcast is going slowly and it's going well, actually. I'm quite happy with it. And I think it's something that I'll carry on for years to come, just because of how much I enjoy it and I don't find it.
I'm pleased. Sorry, yeah, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I think there was just a slight lag, a bit of signal issue. Mind. I think I'm just delighted that people are wanting to pick those things up and speaking to a microphone and stuff. If I worry that sometimes I might be putting people off podcasting and things like that. But it's be great to see you getting on with that. And also, just there's something to be said about it not feeling like work, isn't? You're speaking to your interests in such a way that I think people really want to hear. That makes it more genuine. It also makes it more sustainable. It makes it more likely that you're going to be able to continue that ongoing. Yeah. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the episode. It's unfortunately you compromised and had the other Jack on. You had Jack March on the podcast and stuff, which obviously was a low point for you. But other than that, it's been brilliant. So I do encourage people to check that out. So plugged a number of things there, but I think what I've been able to do whilst we've been chatting is bring up the correct poster. So I'm going to share that. I hope you guys can see that, which is 8 p.m. this evening. Fantastic panel, diversity and inclusion in physiotherapy, past, present, and future. And so also across social media, you'll be seeing things like this, which is a post describing the bios of our 6 brilliant panelists. Farouk being a panelist come moderator, he's going to have a bit of a multi-role. And as I encourage anyone that works on moderating any Physio Matters discussions, of course, he needn't be shy away from him sharing his own take on the matter, but he will be leading that conversation as a moderator too. And as he said there, someone who's interested in holistic healthcare and wants to bring that to you and is interested in sharing that with you as well as not just digesting it himself. A really interesting one to follow and certainly someone that we're excited to work with. So many thanks for coming on the show, Farouk, and we'll look forward to tonight and potentially even, sometime later next week or whatever, maybe we could debrief it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. Thanks a lot, Jim, and thanks a lot, Jack, for having me on the chewing it over. I never thought I'd make it here, I'm just joking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Such a high bar landmark moment.
High bar.
No, thanks a lot, mate. Take care. We'll speak soon.
Great. See you.
Okay, so the last thing for me to do is to blare it out and blast your ears with our usual outro, which we are going to sort out the volume for later this week, I promise. But yeah, thanks for tuning in to Chewing It Over. This is available across social media as a live stream, but then also the audio is made available across all audio platforms on podcasting, etc. So if you want to tune in on Spotify and the like, then you can do. We put the audio out shortly after the event, and so if you want to be listening, people tuning in on their ways to and from work, etc., which is interesting. So really interested to hear your thoughts, especially on this, but also please do join us tonight for the event that we were just talking about. It's going to be really interesting to see. That's at 8 o'clock, and that's going to be on Facebook, on Physio Matters Facebook page, and available after the fact on there and beyond. So do take care, and I'll see you tomorrow for more Chewing It Over.